Hello, children. We are marching towards the board examination, and then we will be pursuing the revision work one by one. So, we are on chapter 6 now, that is attitude and social cognition. I hope you are able to see here on the screen attitude and social cognition. So first we will start understanding the details as we had been discussing in the sessions also. We will start understanding from our notes that we have prepared. So the first thing is explaining the social behavior. So what actually is the social behavior that we have to first understand? What is social behavior? So one must go beyond common sense and folk wisdom. So what is folk wisdom and what is common sense? We must go beyond in order to understand what actually is the attitude, in order to explain how people observe and make sense of their own others diverse behaviors, right? So here there is one noun that has been taken, that is folk wisdom. So what is folk wisdom? That is basically the beliefs that we follow, that we have learned from the societal influence or whatever cultural influence we have. So that is the folk wisdom. So one must go beyond common sense and folk wisdom in order to explain how people observe and make sense of their own and others diverse behavior. What is social behavior? That is necessary component of a human life beyond simply being in the company of others, right? So and what is being social? That engaging in behavior influenced by the presence of other people. That is what is all about being social. Social cognitive process and social behaviors needs to be analyzed in order to fully comprehend how social context shape individual behavior. So now if you see this last line, the social context that shapes the individual behavior, what does that mean is that as per the Bandura's social learning experiment, we have understood that as people start observing the behavior, they start learning it also. So that is what is mentioned here, that how social context shape individual behavior. Okay, now the nature and component of attitudes. This entire context has been taken, inspired by the NCERT curriculum only, because we are preparing for the board exams. So opinion is like if I say in my opinion, right? Others may say so if I feel like. So this is my opinion, right? If an individual's view or opinions are more than just opinions, not merely thoughts, it attaches emotional and actions, it becomes part of your behavior. So what is basically behavior? That when it's only not only just an opinion, it actually attaches the emotional and action, that is the behavioral part, that becomes your attitude. So we will further understand this ABC model also of attitude, where along with the social cognition, along with the cognition, we have the emotional and the behavioral component that defines our attitude. So now, attitude is a state of mind, of course, a set of views or thoughts, that is the cognition regarding some topic, that is the attitude object. So that topic can be anything, like it can be global warming, it can be nuclear power, or it can be societal influence, it can be any topic, that it can be mental health and wellness, it can be inculcating good values is more important than only focusing on the academic curriculum and all that. So this attitude object can be anything, and then one can actually have a set of views or thoughts on that attitude topic, that becomes your state of mind, that is your attitude, which can have a positive, negative or neutral influence. Now if I say positive, negative and neutral influence, so here we have also understood the various behavior patterns, where one is assertive behavior, one is aggressive behavior, and one is passive behavior. So similarly that behavior pattern, because in attitude your behavior aspect is also very much included, your behavior aspect. So it can be either positive, negative, or neutral. Now moving forward, like I said, we will be discussing the ABC component of attitude. So what is the ABC component? Why we call it A, B and C? Because A is for affective, B is for behavioral and C for the cognitive. And then why so? Because when we get in contact with any attitude topic, like we discussed in the previous slide, that attitude topic, it can be anything: global warming, nuclear power, it can be mental health and wellness, it can be, you know, digital platforms, or it can be anything. So we first get in connect with the cognitive aspect of that. That is where we actually develop a thought component related with that. So that is one first initial component that actually defines our attitude. So cognitive, that is the thought component, right? That is the first one. Second is the affective. Once we actually get into the thought component, we actually, after that, we get into the emotional component, that we get attached emotionally with that component. That becomes the affective component. And the third one is, after having the cognitive and the affective, that is the emotional component, we actually transform that into an action, that is the behavioral component. So overall, it creates a ABC model. In fact, it usually occurs in a C, A and B, that is cognitive, affective and behavioral. First we get in connect with that attitude topic, we develop our thought process through the learning and the observation and the understanding, that is C, and then we get attached with that topic, that is the emotional component, that is A, affective, and then that actually defines our behavior, that the tendency to act towards that. So this basically is CAB, but it is called the ABC component of attitude. Now, attitudes are not behavior but have a tendency to act or behave in a certain ways. So we cannot say that, you know, if this is my behavior, this is my attitude also. It can define a tendency to act in a certain way, right? So if I say that, you know, here, if my behavior is always being you know, positive or assertive, right? So that is one tendency, that how will I act or behave in various towards various attitude topics, right? If I have a tendency of behavior, my behavior tendency is being passive or neutral, so this will actually define that how will I act or behave in various attitude topics, towards various attitude topics. Attitudes are the part of cognition, obviously, because we have learned here. And then beliefs and values. Now we will talk a little about what is beliefs and values and how it actually impacts our attitude. Beliefs and values are closely related concepts but are different from attitudes. So if you see beliefs and values, this actually when we started, it was like we were talking about the folk wisdom, right? So what are the folk wisdom? Now we will understand that. And the folk wisdom, we have to think a little you know, away from the folk wisdom when we are talking about attitude. So what are beliefs? The cognitive component of attitudes and form the foundation. Beliefs can form the foundation of your attitude, but it cannot actually define your attitude. The cognitive component of attitude and forms the foundation of the attitude. For example, belief in right to life. So if I have a belief in right to life, or believe in education for all, that is right to education, RTE. So I have a belief that everybody should be educated. I have a belief that one has a right to have the access to the mental health, you know, mental health concerns, right? So then I have a belief, right? So what I'll do is my attitude will be defined based on that belief, right? And now what are the values? Attitudes are beliefs that contain a should or ought aspect. Now if you all have remembered the Freud's personality aspect, in the Freud's personality aspect there were three aspects of personality: id, ego and superego. So id and ego is where we actually formulate or function in the same manner, like first it's id and then ego and then it's superego. So if we all can recall the superego part, where that is largely connected with the moral aspect, that is the moral values, that should I do this or not, if I'll do this I'll get reward, if I'll do that I will get punished on that. So when we talk about the values, so what are the values that contain a should or ought aspect, that it should be done in this way, it ought to have this result. So this is what is the basically defines the value. Attitude or belief that contain a should or ought aspect, that is moral or ethical values, that is the moral aspect that was under the superego personality aspect that Freud had defined long time back, right? So idea that one should respect elders, that is what these are the values, right? One should respect elders irrespective of their behavior or what. This is what is the idea. These are the values. The idea that we must value money, we should be honest and all of that, right? So attitude makes it easier for a person how to act in any situation. So if I have an attitude towards any object or any target object or any attitude object, then it will be easier for me to define how will I act in various situations. For example, our attitude towards cleanliness provide a mental blueprint towards global warming. So if you see, cleanliness is an attitude, right? So if I say cleanliness, that I want my surroundings and the ecosystem to be clean, right? There should not be any cluttering around our ecosystem. So this is my attitude. So that will also give me a blueprint, that is what, that my attitude towards global warming will be positive. As we discussed here, the various evaluative features of the attitude. So I will be very positive towards global warming because my attitude towards cleanliness is positive, right? Okay, now we have understood attitude a little. Now let's try to understand. This video is going to be a little lengthy because I am trying to cover most of the aspects of this chapter. So there are 4 components of attitude. So before we actually define the ABC component of attitude, now in addition to that, there are 4 more components of attitude that we all must understand. Right, so these components are valence. First is the valence that we have already understood and defined in our sessions. Then the extremeness, simplicity, complexity, and the centrality. Right, so if we see, these all are mostly on the scale, that is where the attitude is measured. So if I say the scale to measure attitude is 5-point scale, that is of the valence of an attitude. So what is valence? It indicates whether the attitude is positive or negative towards an attitude topic. Like we discussed, positive, negative or neutral. So it will define whether the attitude is positive, whether the attitude is negative, and how the attitude is functioning towards an attitude topic. Right, so the scale to measure attitude is 5-point scale. If you can see here, 1 is very bad, then bad, neutral. Neutral is where the passive attitude is there, then good and very good. So now the valence of an attitude is where the rating is basically defined if the attitude is positive or negative. So now if you see, rating of 4 or 5 reflects the positive attitude towards the extreme right. Right, and the rating of 1 or 2 will be negative attitude. So that is all done through a rating chart, that is the questionnaire, where we will get to know that the attitude is negative or positive. Or if I get a rating of 3, then it will be neutral. Okay, so now this was the first component of attitude. Now the extremeness of an attitude. Now when we talk about extremeness, that is also again on the scale. It indicates how positive or negative an attitude is. So if it is towards 1, it is extreme negative, towards 5 it is extreme positive. So these are the extreme negative and positives. 1, 2 and 4 will be less extreme, right? So these are the extreme, negative, positive, less extreme, and then in the middle, that is the 3, that will be the lowest extreme. So extremeness itself defines that how extreme is the attitude. Extreme negative, extreme positive, less extreme, and the lowest extreme. Okay, now the third is the simplicity and complexity. So you only have to learn these attributes, and then because these attributes are very relatable, when you actually have to explain it, you have to only remember that this is on the scale, right? So a broader attitude plays a big role, including the number of attitudes within it. So what is the simplicity and what is the complexity? So here, if you can see, simple attitude is where we towards an attitude object we have few attitudes, but complex is that we have multiple attitudes. We can have multiple attitudes. Sometimes we can be positive, sometimes we can be negative, sometimes we can be passive towards, and then we can be extreme positive or extreme negative or whatever. So we can have complexity of attitude, that is where we have multiple attitude. And then simple is where we have very few attitudes. So simplicity and complexity, a broader attitude plays a big role, including the number of attitudes within it. For example, a family containing several members' attitudes. So a family will be having several members, and then there will be a lot of attitudes towards that. So it's not actually a family of attitude, that is what I'm talking about. So there will be several attitudes that actually plays a big role in defining the attitude of an individual. Okay, now moving forward, the centrality of an attitude. The fourth part is the centrality of an attitude, where there will be a central or a particular attitude, and the other attitudes will be related with that. So if we all remember the central trait, it all basically trait is what? Trait is a behavior set of pattern that we showcase over the period of time. So here also, if you see centrality of an attitude, there is a central or particular attitude showing greater centrality, right? So if I have a particular attitude, that a person has an attitude that I will be passive in most of the situations, so that will be my central trait, that will be my central attitude, that will define my other attitudes related with that most of the time I am neutral. I select to stay neutral or passive in most of the situation and towards the attitude topic. So main attitude is the central attitude, and other attitudes are the peripheral attitude. So when we talk about the centrality of an attitude, we will remember one more attribute, that is the peripheral attitude, and the attitude that is, or we can also say non-central attitude. So other attitudes on which main attitude cause a significant influence. Because I am a passive individual, I will define my other attitudes on the similar guidelines, that most of the time I will like to stay passive towards the attitude topics. Okay, for example, central attitude, I have given one example, significance of mental health of children. So my central attitude is that this is my attitude, that there is a significance of mental health of children. Now the peripheral attitude will be that I will study mental health, right? And then I will focus on the lifestyle and the self-care. I will focus on the teaching and the well-being. So my other attitudes are defined based on that the central attitude is that significance of mental health, and the peripheral attitudes are defined based on that. I hope this is clear till now. You can message me if you have any doubt on any of the topic here. Now POX balance triangle. So now what is POX balance triangle? Where we actually focus on that there are attitude formation, and we can change it if we find that there is an imbalance in the attitude. So I will explain it from this part, this triangle that I have shared here. Before that, in the POX triangle there are three attributes that we have to focus on. One is the P, that is where the person one whose attitude is being studied, P, right? So this person's attitude is being studied. Now the person O, is the another person, right? So person O is the another person, and then what is X here? X is the attitude topic. So here towards the attitude topic, P will have a certain attitude, O will have a certain attitude, and P will have a certain attitude towards O. So this is very easy. Most of you were confused in the beginning, but I guess by now we all are quite clear on this. So what happens is, suppose P is having a positive attitude towards O. So as towards X, sorry. So P is having a positive attitude towards X, and it is O is having a negative attitude towards X. So P has a positive and O has a negative, right? But P has a positive attitude towards O also. So if you see here, P is having a positive attitude towards X, right? And then O is having a negative attitude towards X. P is having a positive attitude towards O. So now what is the outcome of it? Is this a balanced attitude? No, because how can P be positive towards X and positive towards O also, where O is negative towards X, right? So if you define the POX triangle model through this, you will be able to understand this. So supposedly in this example, I have taken the attitude topic as bullying, right? So X is bullying. So if I have taken that X is an attitude topic and that is bullying, so here P is positive towards X. So supposedly P is positive towards X, correct? Now O is negative towards X, that O doesn't like bullying, but P is okay with bullying, that is the positive. Right now O has a, now if I say that O is the first person, so if O has a positive attitude, O has a positive attitude towards P, there will be an imbalance. O cannot have a negative attitude towards X and positive towards P, because P is positive towards X. So what is X here? That is bullying, and O is the first person here and P is the second person here. Correct. So usually when you define POX triangle, always keep P as the first person, like in this triangle, P as the first person. So if suppose X is bullying, right? If I say, I have mentioned a few attitude topics, that nuclear research or mental health. So if X is a positive, X is an attitude topic of mental health, right? And then P has a positive attitude towards mental health, but O has a negative attitude towards mental health. Now how can P have a positive attitude towards it? So now how this triangle can be balanced, how the attitude can be balanced, is that either P have a negative attitude towards X, that is mental health, or P has a positive negative attitude towards O. So P will have to do a little self introspection, that there is some distress causing inside P, that how can I have positive here and positive here also, where this person has a negative attitude towards mental health. So here P has to define that I have to balance my attitude and have a either negative attitude towards O or have a negative attitude towards X. This is what is the POX triangle, that is the concept of balance. So if you see, the concept of balance is very important, where we actually are talking about attitude formation and attitude change. Why we actually require the attitude change is that when we actually start observing that there is a distress going on, we will understand the cognitive dissonance also. Then where is a distress going on, we always must focus on the change of the attitude. Now I was talking about cognitive dissonance, and the next slide is about the Festinger and Carl Smith, social psychologists. These were the social psychologists, is about their concept of cognitive dissonance, right? So Festinger and Carl Smith's concept of cognitive dissonance. So what is basically the cognitive dissonance? Suppose my one cognition says that, I should be having healthy meal 6 days in a week, and one day can be my cheat meal day. That is very important for my mental and physical wellness, right? This is my cognition 1. But at the same time, what I am doing is that every day I am having some or other processed food, or every day becomes my cheat meal day. So I have given, before we get into that, I have given two examples here, cognition 1 and cognition 2. Okay, since I'm a psychologist and an alternative therapist, it's very important that you should give examples related with your liking. So I always give examples related with either nutrition or mental health or alternative therapy. So now if we say cognition 1 is eating balanced meals 6 days in a week is good for my health, right? But the cognition 1 is that I eat junk food every second day. So what is happening here is that individual holding cognition 1 and cognition 2 will feel out of tune. We will start feeling out of tune. We have to do a little self introspection and observe ourselves, that we will start getting under distress, right? That is called the cognitive dissonance. That is the dissonance in attitude towards the balanced meal here in this, because my first cognition is not in line with the second cognition. So what should I do? I should try to bring in a consonant, right? I should try to bring in a consonant. So what is consonant? Consonant is opposite of dissonant. So where I will try to bring cognition 1 in line with cognition 2. Maybe because I don't have access to home cooked food or healthy food all the time, so I will try to define 2 days or 3 days as junk meal or cheat meal day, and rest of the days as healthy meal, so that my cognition 1 is in line with the cognition 2, or work on it other ways round, that I will have only one cheat meal day. So that is where we have to achieve the consonant. So we have to beat the cognitive dissonance and achieve the consonant. So what is consonant? That is the opposite of dissonance. Now, if we talk about Festinger emphasized on the cognitive component. Now, we had been talking about attitude formation and everything, and where our first connection with the attitude is that we actually understand things and analyze those things, situations and the objects, and then we develop a cognitive component. So Festinger emphasized the importance of cognitive component of an attitude, which must be logically in line with each other. So if we think something and then we behave in a certain manner, then we are not in line. We believe in something, this is my cognition 1, but I am behaving in a second manner, that is my cognition 2, then it's not in line, and in future it can lead to distress and it can lead to downfall of an individual. So we must bring in consonant in order to beat the dissonance. Okay, I hope this all is clear till here. A clash between what we believe and how we act. That is what we started with, that in the beginning when we started, what was it? That it is not the folk wisdom. Folk wisdom is what? That I believe in this, right? That I believe in certain aspects. This is my wisdom. That is folk wisdom. This is my belief, that I should be operating in certain ways. This is my belief, this is how I should be. But when there is a clash between my belief and how I am acting, what we believe and how we act, then there is cognitive dissonance, and we must bring in the consonant, right? So Festinger's model was very apt. The discomfort of an individual, the discomfort an individual feels, right, when the cognitive components are not in line with each other, where the belief and the action are not in line, they are not lined up. So I might believe something, but I am not acting according to that. That is the cognitive dissonance. And if you observe people around you, you will find many of the people around you are leading their lives through cognitive dissonance only, because having a belief, having a folk wisdom is very easy, but acting in that towards that belief is very difficult. Now the concept of balance and cognitive dissonance are examples of cognitive consistency. So here the balance of attitude is required, where the cognition 1 should be in line with cognition 2, that is your belief should be in line with your action. That is the cognitive consistency. Okay, so this is what is cognitive consistency. The two-step concept I will skip here because we have discussed this very well in our sessions. This is very important for us to understand the attitude that is prejudice and discrimination. A lot of us were little confused about what is stereotype, what is discrimination, and what is prejudice. So let's talk a little more about this. Prejudice is an attitude, right? So this all is what we are talking about. Is everything is an attitude that we act in a certain way through our cognitive and affective and emotional, that is affective, and then behavioral component, right? So prejudice is an attitude that is through the all the components. Now an attitude inclined towards a particular group where the nature of the group is usually negative. Okay, so the definition is very apt, but what is it? So before that we have to understand the stereotype. What is stereotypes, right? So stereotype is a cognitive component of attitude. Why cognitive component? Because we learn and understand stereotypes without any logic behind that. So the cognitive component of an attitude towards concerning or specific groups, that is stereotype. Right, the cluster of ideas that we actually inculcate through the understanding through the societal and environmental influence regarding the characteristics of a particular group. That group can be any group, right? That is the undesirable characteristics about the target group. Now that group that has been stereotyped or that is facing the victim of the prejudice is termed as target group. Remember that. So target group, agar aapke if you are getting in the case study and all that, you must understand what basically the target group is, leading to negative or prejudice towards its member, right? So leading to negative attitude, right? So where there is undesirable characteristics about the target group, that leads to the negative attitude or prejudice. Where now, what is stereotype? Stereotype is a cognitive component, a cluster of idea that we inculcate through the learning and understanding, and then we start discriminating against that particular group, right? The cluster of ideas and that group becomes a target group. Now stereotype leads to discrimination, prejudice also leads to discrimination. Now discrimination is the behavioral component. So in the ABC component, we've always discussed that attitude involves a behavioral component. So where through the stereotype we actually start discriminating against that particular group, that is the behavioral component that leads to discrimination. Less positive behavior towards a particular group. Discrimination is what? A less positive behavior towards a particular group. That is the target group. That is as compared to the other group, that is the favored group. So favored group is what? Where we are actually balancing, analyzing two groups. One is the target group and the other is the favored group. So discrimination is more towards the target group, and the group that is favored is the favored group. So now prejudice is the negative attitude towards black people. That is one example that I have given, that leads to discrimination. So towards the racism, right, there is a negative attitude towards them that leads to discrimination, and that leads to hatred, mistrust, unrest. Lot of negative attitude inculcates or trees up from that negative attitude, that is prejudice, leading to discrimination. Now compared to favored group, white leads to conflicts. Like I said, conflicts, mistrust, and lot of social unrest, right? That is the conflict. So that prejudice is leading to conflicts. Okay, now there are a lot of learnings. How do we learn prejudice? So learning is through the association. I will zoom it a little. Learning is through association, rewards, observation, punishment. How do we learn prejudice or discrimination? That is through the association. When we are associated with such kind of people or group, and we are getting rewarded being part of the favored group, or then we are observing it, bandura, right? Social learning. When we observe it, that becomes part of our cognition. punishment, right? So these all are the behavioral component. If we remember the Pavlov's classical conditioning, or the Skinner's operant conditioning, we will see that rewards and punishments and Bandura's social learning, these all basically defines our behavior, right? So we actually use that in the during our treatment, but in our day-to-day life also this happens, that we are learning the behavior or the attitude through rewards or punishments of the observations, right? So this all we have discussed. What is a prejudiced personality? Now, what is a prejudiced personality? That is very low adjusting, that is having very low adjusting capacity, that is called the prejudiced personality, right? And they are very high on the anxiety most of the time. This is very important to understand. That can be, here you can actually analyze the case study also, that prejudiced people are they have very low capacity to adjust, and they are very high on the anxiety. Now, the kernel of truth concept is where you have very limited information and you have a tendency or the attitude to believe that